to the Good Girl Confessional. I am your host, Sandy Lowries. And of course, the Good Girl Confessional podcast is proudly brought to us by WB40 Women Beyond 40 magazine, a platform for women 40, 50, 60 and beyond. And you can check us out at WB40.com. Today in the podcast, I am talking to a delightful woman who is funny, generous of spirit. She's just lovely. Her name is Sally Prosser, and she is a former television presenter, journalist, and news presenter who is now an incredible voice coach, as well as being like a company spokesperson, a keynote speaker. She has been helping so many people, especially women, to find their voice and to feel more confident in places like workplaces, having to present, eulogies, weddings, whatever it may be. She also has an incredibly funny TikTok where she does satirical news reading. It's very funny. She's fantastic. Please welcome to the confessional, Sally Prosser. Hello, Sally, and welcome to the confessional. How are you today?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Listen to that beautiful, beautiful voice.
Oh, you're too kind. The good people of TikTok, not all of them think that.
Well, we will get to TikTok in a minute, but of course, you have had this incredible career as a news presenter, reporter, and so that gorgeous voice of yours has really come in handy. So tell us about that side of your career, and then let's talk about what you're doing now.
Oh, sounds fantastic. So I suppose it all started back when I was 9 years old in front of the mirror with my hairbrush talking about the stories of the household. And I really loved speech and drama and did a lot of Shakespeare and performing in Eisteddfods. Studied journalism at uni and rang up the local radio station to come in and do some work experience in the newsroom. And I'll never forget when I did my first bulletin at 5:30 in the morning. It was like, "Good morning, it's 5:30. I'm Sally Prosser." And my boss at the time was like, "Look, Sal, it's not a Shakespearean monologue. Don't be too theatrical. You've got to think that people are just, at home getting the lunches ready and, relax a bit." So that was when I first started thinking about using my voice in a bit of a different way. And I went into radio and then into television, of course. And I suppose when you're doing it every day and you're using the deep breathing and using the resonance in your chest and also working on articulation exercises, I actually had a slight lisp and I was Sally Prosser 7 News for a while. Like that was a hell of a lot of S's. So I was doing all these exercises.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I guess like other professions, the voice is the tool of the trade for journalists. And people on television do make it seem a lot easier than it is.
You certainly do. I not long ago had the beautiful Tracy Spicer on the podcast, but she has such a
Tracy.
recognizable, beautiful voice. Oh, she's just divine, is she not?
And her book is amazing as well.
Incredible. Her book is phenomenal. But you have that same really beautiful kind of voice that just takes you along on a journey. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. It's all about the airflow. So it's about breathing. It's not very coronavirus safe, really. It's like imagining your windpipe is like a hose. And this is why the voice is an incredible diagnostic, because if you're all like tense, it's like squeezing the hose. And if the air gets blocked or pushed back, then you get this kind of voice. You can get the crackle, or you can get that pushed back sound, or it can kind of go into the head like that and it can go up. But if you imagine it like that beautiful channel drawing from a well in your stomach and you're pouring your beautiful voice over people that you're speaking to, then anybody can achieve that nice flow.
Oh, how beautiful. Or you could be recovering from COVID like my good self and you could sound huskier than you really are. It's always joyful.
A little bit sexy.
That's what I keep telling my partner anyway. Sally will run with it.
Yeah, run with it.
So, so I mean, that's really fantastic. But now, because really you're an expert in this field, and you are now teaching other people, you're voice coaching, and you're helping other people really to in their business and in their life to develop that. So, how did that come about?
Yes. So after I left television, I went into public relations. Often they'll say, cross to the dark side, going into PR, which I absolutely loved. And for about 4.5 years, I was in the PR team and being the spokesperson for a big water and sewage company. Yes, I was like the glamour girl for sewage, talking about what you should and shouldn't flush. It was pretty hilarious. It was also a time in my life where I was largely single. So like the dating conversation was a little bit off. With how much I, knew about sewerage. Anyway, so while I was there, while I was in journalism, I was always working with other journalists on the side to help with their voice, and I kept doing that. And when I was in a more corporate setting, I remember a meeting where somebody I didn't have too much to do with pulled me aside and said, "Sal, how do you always say what you want to say in meetings?" And I thought, oh, what do you mean? Because often I was going into meetings thinking, don't talk too much, listen, don't dominate. I said, what do you mean? She said, oh, look, I have my notes and I have these things that I want to say and I just feel like I can't find the right time and I'm not being listened to. And I said, oh, we can't have this. So we used to sit in the kitchen. I'd be like, all right, here's some tips. This is how you've got to enter. Enter low, enter with conviction, use a gesture, and from that moment, I started to realize that I had a real passion for helping people find their voice and communicate with confidence in any scenario, whether it be on the news or in a meeting or doing a eulogy or at a wedding or at a conference. And that I had also a lot of knowledge in this field from all of my training. And so I emceed a big water conference in 2018. And after that, the CEO of the company I was working for said, oh, Sal, you should go and do that full time. And I thought, oh, all right, let's go. I remember being back at uni and thinking, oh, can I survive on goon and 2-minute noodles? Yes, I was quite happy. Like, I think this is all right. Like, let's go. And never looked back. It has just grown and grown and grown, which has been so wonderful because I have, the best job in the world, helping people share their beautiful message. Everybody has such a beautiful voice in them, the voice being the organ of our soul, and such a valuable message to share. And being in the position where I can massage out some of those blockages so they can do that is just awesome.
So what's it like when you watch somebody, say, walk in with very little confidence in terms of public speaking? And we're not talking about people who want to speak for a career necessarily. We're talking about people as well, as you said, like at a eulogy or a wedding, or part of their job means they have to get up in front of a lot of people and do presentations. What's it like watching people walk in with very little confidence, to see them develop and to find that confidence in themselves?
Oh, it's beautiful. And I do work with people who are professional speakers, but the vast majority of people I work with are not. And as you say, they just want to be able to have the confidence to speak at their wedding, to do a couple of Instagram lives or promote their business or go on social media, or they're at work and they want to say, yes, I can go and speak on that panel. And what I really love about what I do is that it's just a couple of questions. Everybody has that inner confidence, and it's just guiding them to it. Because let's be honest, a lot of people have a pretty negative story when it comes to public speaking. If we think of like the first memory, often it's in a classroom where you're in front of people being tested by the teacher, where the teacher's like, slow down, don't say and ah. So a lot of people have these quite negative stories around speaking, especially there's a generation of the children must be seen and not heard, where speaking up has been a negative thing, where being quiet has been, something that served them in the past. And so much of it is unraveling that story and writing a new story where speaking is something to be grateful for and to look forward to, rather than bringing back these horrible memories of it not going so well.
Oh, I love that so much, because actually you've just really made me think that. So the Good Girl Confessional podcast, for example, the name came from it started as a blog, but now of course it's a podcast, started as a tongue-in-cheek reference to the fact that society, patriarchy, tells women, young girls especially, to be good, be quiet, be submissive, don't talk up, just don't be heard in a room. And I do think that's something in particular that women carry through their lives, unfortunately, where we see women being ignored in boardrooms and in meeting rooms because people are talking over the top of them, or they can't, as you say, I can't find the right time to express my point of view, and nobody's listening when I do. I think that, being able to speak for women is such a powerful and emotional thing in our life, to be able to get up there and say, I have a story and I want to share that story, or I am really good at my job and I want to get in there and share it.
Sandy, hell yes. And that's why I say diamonds aren't a girl's best friend. The diaphragm's the girl's best friend. Because if you can engage that diaphragm and really speak from within, it is so powerful, and it is tricky. Think about, we could do a whole episode just on this, but if we're told that we sound like a girl, it's usually in a negative context. You sound like a girl. If we're told we sound like a man, it's usually also in a negative context.
Yeah, absolutely.
You sound like a man, you sound like a girl. It's like, well, for God's sakes, you can't win. Who are we supposed to sound like? It's about sounding like us and knowing we can't please everybody. And times are changing, I hope. And a lot of environments are getting more and more used to hearing female voices.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's more challenging for us. We have to run a more narrow lane with communication, like everything else with leadership. If you're too loud and you're too abrupt and you clip all your words and you use big gestures and you keep in that low register, then you could get branded as being too aggressive. And again, this totally depends on your culture of where you're working. And then if you go to like soft and steady, like, so something I was thinking about was this, then you seem like you don't know what you're talking about, and you often, shut down. So I have a lot of professional women who come to me and they're like, how do I cut through and be heard? I feel like there's not a lot of room to play with. And, sadly in lots of situations that is true. But the podcasts like this, and you look at what Mamma Mia is doing as well.
Absolutely.
We're getting more and more women's voices on podcasts. And I actually saw something the other day about how Mia Friedman was saying when she started her company, how people were like, oh, no one wants to listen to women's voices. How yes, we do.
How yes, they do.
And like how she also said that it was really niche, like women was niche.
But I still get that. And obviously because I have the Women Beyond 40 platform, and we have a magazine and we have the website and we have everything going on. And it's specifically for women 40, 50, 60 and beyond, although a lot of our readership are women in their 30s. And what's really fascinating to me is that when we first launched that and we were looking for advertisers or any sort of funding, and I was constantly knocked on the head because they said, no one wants to listen to the stories of women, but in particular, I can't see the stories of women over 40 really making their mark. That's what I was told, which put a fire under my ass, and which, of course, made me create the entire platform. Yeah. I think, right?
Well, you're having the last laugh now.
Oh, of course, right, because there's so many extraordinary women, and not every woman obviously comes on the podcast is in their 40s, your good self included. You are not yet there, but it's really for us was about sharing the wisdom, hard-won wisdom, I like to call it, of older women and saying to younger women, your time doesn't end when you hit the age of 40. In fact, it just begins again. Like you get to do all these really cool things, just like your good self. And I think like it's, it's quite an interesting thing, but I did see Mia's post and I burst out laughing because everything she said is what I get told. And I constantly get told, oh, you're in such a niche market, women over the age of 40. And I'm like, am I?
Oh, hello.
I don't think I am. Hello.
Oh, it's so interesting. I had a beautiful client this morning and she's 24 and she was saying that she's feeling very apprehensive about turning 25.
Mm-hmm.
And we were speaking about how, women are really encouraged by society to stay in that girl archetype. Like the girl is celebrated, whereas we're not celebrated in the different archetypes that we go into as we age. And it's the same with the voices. And so something I really encourage every person I work with to do is to really get in connection with what their voice is today, not what they should sound like or not what they did sound like, but today, what you do sound like, because our voices do change just like the rest of our body and our minds. And, we're constantly evolving. And if we can be connected to our voice and our breath and keep rolling with that change, then we can really confidently speak our truth at any age.
Oh, I love that advice so much, Sally, because it's really about finding your authentic self as well. And then once you know, as you say, authentically who you are and you find, that voice and, it is much easier, I think, than to speak out or to have a conversation that needs to be had or to speak your truth.
Absolutely.
I love that. And speaking of which, so what I love about you too, you are hilarious, by the way. You are so much fun. I recently was told about your TikTok page and I've been watching it. You're bloody hilarious. So tell us all how.
Oh, thank you. My family don't think so.
Oh, no, I do. I think you're great. So lots of clips of you basically standing with a hairbrush as doing these like really fantastic satirical news reading bits. It's so funny. So tell me how it came about because I love it.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So my TikTok did start with just different voice tips and grammar tips and things like that. And of course, was a reporter, and a lot of my clients are TV reporters as well. And the voice for broadcast is a little bit unusual. People always say, why do you always sound the same? And just quickly, one of the main reasons for that is because of the script. We don't, in podcasts or any other type of conversations, speak in like a minute 20 interspersed with grabs from people. It's a very unusual format, and the inflection stays flatter and the range is less. And anyway, somebody suggested, I'd love to hear you do this like a news reporter. And on TikTok, you can reply to the comments. So I thought, I'll just give this a go. And then it grew from there. People thought it was really funny. And I love it because I'm all about making content that makes people smile and not being too serious and having a bit of fun. And I think it entertains myself as much as everybody else.
Well, you entertained me as well. I love it. I just thought it's very clever. It's a really clever way, I guess, for you to showcase and highlight exactly what you do and how those different voices are so important in different professions, including news reading. So funny.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the kids, I think there's a lot of kids that do follow it. And what I love about TikTok as well is it's a way of introducing voice and speaking and this kind of coaching, I guess, to an audience that may not even realize it's a thing. Like I have so many people reach out to me and say, oh, your TikToks really helped me with my school speech. And I didn't even know that voice and speaking coaching was a thing until I met you. And like, I always thought this was just something that people had or didn't have, but you've taught me that I can do this too. And so it's wonderful.
Oh, how amazing is that? And that you're actually connecting with like a new kind of audience that you wouldn't have assumed. As you said, like, so many kids are loving TikTok, and so many kids, by the way, are massively talented on TikTok.
Oh, crazy.
But how great is it that then they stumble across and find someone like you and go, oh, that's going to help me, right? I love
that. Cutest comment I got was somebody said, oh, my mum doesn't let me watch a lot of TikTok accounts, but she says that you're approved and I can watch yours. So I was like, oh gosh, I hope none of the other accounts are too bad. But yeah, it's fantastic. And I really try to be as social as I can on social media. This is on all my platforms, responding to all the comments. And, I feel like some people do use social media as more as just a broadcasting platform, whereas it's just a one way. I try to, respond to comments and create that dialogue rather than it being a monologue.
Oh, I love that because we're exactly the same. Because for us, it's really
Mm.
about the connection and engagement for women, especially when they sort of find our socials and say, "Oh, this is so great because I'm 56 or I'm however old I am and I'm having the time of my life." I love that. But what I did see on TikTok and I did laugh is that we have matching glasses.
Hey there! When Sandy's not interviewing kick-ass women, she's hanging out with me at Alex the Seal, a podcast about music and nostalgia. I'm Jo Pybus, and each episode, Sandy and I talk about all the songs that got us hooked up, knocked up, and broken up. Do yourself a favour and search Alex the Seal on your podcast app. Love you, Molly!
I love that.
Oh my
Here are
God.
mine.
Wait, and here are mine. So,
Oh my gosh, let
I
me just
feel
get
like
a photo for
I
social.
was going to say, let me get a photo as well. I love this.
Oh, and in your phone case. That is so fun. And anybody who joins my 6-week voice makeover course gets a pair of these sent to them.
Oh, there you go. That is a definite, reason to join up because I love those classes. I've used them a lot. So I'm very lucky that I co-host another podcast called Alex the Seal, which is about music and nostalgia, and I co-host it with my gorgeous, co-host Jo Pybus. She's brilliant, and so these classes have come in so handy because I do things like I sing the Go-Go song and whatever. I just it's a lot of fun. But I saw you in those classes and I'm like, oh, we're glasses sisters. I loved it.
I love it. Yes, well, I wore those glasses, which is where you might have seen, on Saturday to the top of a snow-covered mountain in a pair of shorts and a bra, and it was -8. And the reason I wore those glasses was because I knew I wanted to see the challenge through my heart-shaped rose-coloured glasses and just keep the joy, keep smiling. And it always reminds me what perspective to have. And this is what I talk about with public speaking, approaching it with joy and fun and playfulness rather than like it being such a serious challenge. And, I can't be sure that those glasses helped get me to the top, but I think they did.
I'm so thrilled that you brought this up because I was, and I told you this off, air, so no one will think I'm creepy. But I was Insta stalking you. I was checking out all your stuff, and I was like, wow, she's it's freezing, and she's climbing to the top of a mountain, and you're doing all these amazing things. How did that happen?
Oh, Sandy, it's so funny because I didn't think of myself in the past as all that outdoory, but I think now I've officially passed the outdoory test, if there is one. I got into Wim Hof, so Wim Hof breathing, because in voice, breathing is one of the most important things we do. Almost every issue with nerves and voice quality always comes back to breathing. So it's a huge part of what I do. And so that's what attracted me to that. And then I looked more and more into it. I found this expedition and I thought, oh, why not? And I've always been a bit, in the past, afraid of the cold. I was born on the 4th of October in Wollongong, and my mum always told me this story about how it was an unseasonably hot October day. 34 degrees or something. And so since I was a baby, I always felt the cold. And it was this narrative that really played out in my life where if I was, everyone would be in a t-shirt and I'd have my scarf on. No one would need a jacket and I always would. And so it was also about tackling this fear of the cold that I had. I also have my showers at like lava level as well. My boyfriend honestly cannot understand how I can stand in it. And so I went down to this expedition. I keep going to say exhibition. No, expedition. And yes, I sat in icy cold rivers. I walked up that mountain and I feel like a new woman. Like, it was so empowering. And what it does is there's lots of benefits to it, but one of the main ones is training your nervous system. So in a controlled environment, you're putting yourself into the sympathetic nervous system, the stress response, and then through your breath, you're bringing yourself into parasympathetic, the rest and digest. So you're teaching yourself how to bring yourself out of stress. And then when you get out and get warm, you get a big dopamine hit because it's like, hell yes, I just did that. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how, as the days go on, it plays out and helps me deal with any of life's stressful situations. It certainly puts perspective on things. You know, a couple of annoying emails don't seem so bad when you're in -8 at the top of a mountain.
Oh, wow. Well, I was blown away because I was watching you thinking, how is she doing this in shorts and whatnot? I think it's incredible. And I love, like, you know, quite often I've seen YouTube videos, and these are people who do this all the time in places like Sweden, in colder climates, where they actually do swim in freezing cold icy water, and they swear by it, and that it's really, really good for the system. So I was like, wow, go you girl, because I'm such a
You
Melbourne
could
city
absolutely
girl.
do it. Honestly, Sandy, you could absolutely do it. I'm an inner city girl as well, with my, my fake nails and my red lips. And I'd only done one ice bath before I went. I did one ice bath on the Gold Coast, right? Before I went.
Wow, okay.
And when I got there was all of these like really outdoory people that had, been doing ice baths for ages and had chest freezers in their garage. And I was like, oh my gosh, am I up to this? And I rose to every single challenge. I was so proud of myself. And it really taught me that we can do hard things. It's like that Henry Ford quote: if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So once you make that
that's really
decision,
true and really good at
making that decision
Yeah, well, sorry,
and having the right intention. Sorry, I don't know if there's a bit of a delay.
I think there is, but keep going.
Okay, I'll keep going. So it's having that intention, having that reason. So on Sunday morning, we did a before sunrise dip. So it was pitch black. And that was when my social media feeds were covered in the Roe v. Wade decision. And I was so encouraged by that, all the feelings I had of frustration and rage and grief and anger, I channeled all that and said, I have a choice to go into this river and do this for me and heal for the sisterhood collective. I'm getting, chills describing this, because that was really what got me in the river that morning. And after I came out, those feelings had subsided. It was incredibly healing.
Wow, that's phenomenal. And as you say, what a bloody time to be alive. And, it was such a shocking decision, I think, that, sent shockwaves through all of us throughout the world, I think all women, because it just felt like such an assault on the sisterhood, as you say, and on the very basic rights of women to choose whether, to choose what they do with their own bodies and their own reproduction. And, so I was, yes, like you. I didn't go into an ice bath. I was just really bloody angry. And I think it's taken a lot to process that. And in speaking to friends that I have in the US, it's been a really difficult time for women there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think sometimes we forget how many choices we have. I've made the choice not to get married or have children. I own my own property. I run my own business. And these things that I don't take for granted, I really appreciate. These options weren't available even a couple of generations ago. My partner's mother, she was in the generation that had to quit work when she got married.
Yeah, it's insanity, isn't it? And
it's just absolute insanity. And I feel, yeah.
No, agreed.
We're going a little bit off topic, maybe.
No, but it's not a bad thing to discuss as well, because this comes right back to the fact that women need to find their voice, and for all of us to be able to collectively support one another and voice these opinions is so important as well. And you're right, though. I mean, I think back to my mum, who was a fierce, proud disabled feminist who was fighting for the rights of women back in the the 60s and 70s, and then you go, well, we're still fighting for these basic rights. How could this possibly be happening now? My mum got detained, arrested for protesting, and in solidarity at the time with the US sisters. So she has recently, like, my mum has passed away, but you say, I would imagine she would be turning over in her grave to hear that this has been overturned, and in what world is that even possible? And as you say, that we live in a different generation where we have the right to choose. And as you say, for you to make that decision that you don't want to get married, or you choosing not to have children, because this whole ridiculousness that every woman should get married, or every woman should be having children, or every woman should do A, B, and C is so archaic. And thank you very much for sharing that, because I think that will resonate with so many other women.
Absolutely. And I work with a lot of young women, and in some cases they're shocked. Even now, they're surrounded by an influence where they're just going to get married and have kids. And I'm passionate about choice. I even asked my mum, and I'm sure she wouldn't be alone. I said, so why did you get married and have kids? And she said, oh, it's just what you did. It's just what you did. And I really believe that anything in life should not be just what we do. We should listen in with our soul and say, what is it that we want to do, and do things for us and for our own
agreed.
reasons.
And to make very, very absolutely, and to make very conscious choices. But when we start stripping away the rights of women to do so, it becomes a very dangerous, slippery slope for everybody. It really does feel like we're back in the 1950s.
Yeah, that was one of the best memes that I saw, which is, it's 9:00 in Australia and 1 p.m. in Rome and 1942 in America.
Sadly, very true. Sadly, very true. Hey, speaking of which, because you were just talking about your boyfriend, lovely, congratulations. But I did see on Instagram you made a lovely post about manifesting him, and I wanted to chat with you about that. Is that something that you utilize a lot in your life? Is the power of manifestation?
100%, absolutely. And the thing is everybody is manifesting their life, whether you know it or not. So everybody is manifesting. If you're conscious that you are, then you can make some changes. So for me with relationships, I went through a period of time where I was, dating a lot, and I really felt like I hated men. It got to a point, Sandy, where I would just be in the shower and no one would be around. And I'd be like, oh, far out, I hate men. Like I'd just say, it would just come out of my mouth. It was just like, there are no good guys, and oh my God, And of course, me thinking that and saying that, there was no way in the world I was going to meet somebody appropriate when that was what I was putting out to the universe. So a couple more heartbreaks later, and, crying over a few podcasts, I said, right, I'm going to stop just casting the net out, because until then my strategy had been, if I cast the net wide enough, surely I'm going to catch someone who's half decent. Bad strategy. So with manifesting, the more specific, the better. It's like putting an order into a restaurant. So if you say to the kitchen, I want some food, then they're going to be there going, well, what does she want? Like, I don't really know. And then you don't really know what you're going to get. But if you can make your order specific, it's much more effective. And so I got out my computer and I typed out in present tense, I'm so happy and grateful I am in a phenomenal relationship with an amazing man, and wrote out this page and a half of everything I was looking for specifically, except his age, which he initially lied about, but that was my fault. Didn't include that in the original manifesto. And then I recorded it to my phone. And by the way, I've done this as well for lots of other things, like for my business, for, things I wanted to buy, lots of things. I recorded it to my phone and I would listen to it at night and in the morning. And then it sort of went off the radar. Other stuff was happening and it went off the radar. The other thing I did was I printed it out and I folded it up and I buried it in a pot plant. Like, I'm like totally into spirituality. So I buried it in the pot plant and forgot about it. And then about 3-4 months after meeting Patrick, I came across it and I read it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I wrote down. And then now it happens so often that it's not a surprise anymore.
I'm such a fan of manifestation. I think I've been doing it consciously or unconsciously my whole life, probably, as most of us do. And I think it's quite phenomenal. But I do think, as you say, you have to be quite specific, because be careful what you wish for is always what I like to say, because I have manifested, I've certainly said, oh, I want this, and it's turned up in my life. And I thought, oh, shoot, that wasn't what I wanted. I think you've just got to be really, really specific and really think about what it is that you need. But really what it is, I think, is just surrendering what you'd really like to have in your life. You're just surrendering that belief over to the universe, right? And going, well, let's see what happens now. And I think once we admit to ourselves, or once we speak about it, we write it down, we become very, very clear and aware, especially in dating. Because let me tell you, when I had my blog, The Good Girl Confessional, that was about sex and dating and relationships after 40. And it was at times hilarious and at times really hairy. Like, it was just because, as you say, when you put that net out so wide, you go, who knows what kinds of fish I'm going to catch here. And speaking about fish, when you were dating, were you shocked by how many men on dating apps are holding fish?
Yes, it's quite funny though. My dad used to be a fisherman, and I went on fishing trips with him many times when I was younger, and I actually caught a fish which was an Australian record when I was 9 years old. So it was like the biggest yellow belly. I'm not much of a fisherwoman now, but at the time I caught this 7.7 kilo yellow belly. And before we ate fish around the dinner table, my dad was always, he wasn't religious or anything, but his way of ritual was by making us all say what the scientific name of the fish was. So we have this bizarre knowledge of scientific names of fish that we had to say before we had dinner. Anyway, so when I saw these fish on apps, often I would not be swiping them. But when I did, I knew I always had a bigger flex than what they did in terms of fishing.
I love that. My girlfriend and I, Kathy, hi Kathy, if you're listening, she will be listening. That we had this running joke, because at the time we were both single, over 40, and we were, on the dating apps. And I started making random jokes about fish pics rather than dick pics, but we both knew what we were talking about. It was quite hilarious. Yeah. And so I always assumed that the bigger the fish, perhaps not so much the appendage, you know what I mean? So who knows?
Yes, that did seem to be the pattern.
I love
although
that.
I did end up I did meet Patrick on Tinder. It was quite funny because I was not on Tinder at that stage. I was on all the apps, and I thought, especially in Brisbane, all the same people are on all the same apps. But I thought at the time, actually, I hadn't had any kind of bedroom action for a while. So I thought, I'll jump back on Tinder just to make sure everything's still in working order, because that's going to be the quickest place for me to get that kind of action. Anyway, then I met Patrick and he was so naive to it. It was the only platform he was on. So he wasn't on any of the others, and he didn't really know that it was kind of a hookup app. And so it was all serendipity, the manifestation, that led me to going on Tinder, to meeting him, and then the rest is history.
I agree, because I met my partner Michael on Bumble, and I'm always really thrilled when people ask me. I just say it, and people go, "Oh, really? Like, it works?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, clearly it did." And we sort of, that's where we met. We met online. We met on Bumble, and it was really interesting because I'd taken this huge break from dating, and then again I was like, right, now I'm ready. But I was also very, very acutely aware of what I wanted, and had sort of put it out there, and went on Bumble. He was the first guy that I had a conversation with, met for a coffee, and the rest is history. So there you go.
I love that. I also met Patrick for coffee, which I thought was a morning date, which might have made a difference. But yeah, wonderful. They definitely work. It's
Well, I
again,
love that
it's the
story.
intention that you put into it and the energy that you put into it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's just not settling either for, that'll do. No, don't settle, ladies. That's all I have to say about that one.
Don't
Hey,
settle.
Sally,
Yes,
so
don't
anybody,
settle.
never. So anybody who wants to learn more about you, we will put up all of your links because you are running incredible courses, but you also do one-on-one coaching. Is that right?
Yes, I am not an international woman of mystery. I'm on all the platforms at Sally Prosser Voice, and I have lots of programs and memberships, 6-week programs, a spirituality and voice course, one-on-one, creating Fear to Fierce is another course. I have a habit of creating new products, which is what I love to do. So get in touch and we can have a chat. If you would like to learn more about your voice and have that feeling of being able to use it and share the amazing knowledge that you have in any setting, it's not just a career skill. It really is a life skill. If you're able to use your voice in those moments that really matter, it will change your life. So I feel like I'm going a little bit Oprah on you now, being like it's life-changing, but that's why I do what I do. So please get in touch.
I love it. And I've been, I do lots of research, obviously, on my gorgeous people when they come on guests. And you know what? I really love your website, but I love that you are really diversified. So there's lots of stuff. What is it? Speak from your soul. Things like that really resonate with me. I really like it. But you do work with students and professional journos, but basically anybody who really wants to be a keynote speaker, or as we said before, if you just want to feel a little bit more confident in the workplace, to be able to voice your opinions or to present in meetings when you've got big presentations to happen, or you have a big town hall and someone's going to hand you the microphone. It's hugely beneficial.
Oh, absolutely. One of my beautiful clients last week said, Sal, I've really turned the corner. I was speaking the other day and I didn't even realize I hadn't given the microphone back. It was just in my hand and I just didn't realize. And she said, in the past, I could not give that thing away fast enough. And just the fact that I had it without even realizing shows how far I've come and how comfortable I am speaking. And I was just like, yes, this is amazing.
Oh, I love that. I love it so much. And especially, look, yes, for the guys, but especially for women, I think you're right. We've turned a corner. We're in a different time since Me Too. I think that women are starting to find their voice and their purpose and their authenticity. And so, being able to connect with someone like your good self who can help them to find that inner voice and then not be afraid to use it, I think is so incredible.
Oh, thank you.
So it has been an absolute delight having you on the Good Girl Confessional. I just think you're fabulous. I will put up all the links so everyone should be following you on socials and they can find your beautiful website and they can hopefully get in touch and learn how to use their voice and share their hard-won wisdom.
Oh, I love that. And if you are listening to the podcast, let me know that you are listening when you get in touch and I'll be able to. I'm not organised enough to have a code or anything at the ready, but let me know that you're listening to the podcast and I'll be able to give you a very, very special deal.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And we will put that up in our show notes as well so people know. And look, I think you're fab. I love it. Everyone should get onto your TikTok as well, and I'll put that up. Your TikTok, of course, is Sally Prosser. You are amazing. You're fun, joyful, and so brilliant at what you do. And it's been just a delight chatting with you today.
Yay! I'm putting the Love Heart glasses back on for the finale. Thank you so much, Sandy. It's been great.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. listening to the Good Girl Confessional podcast. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is brought to you by WB40, Women Beyond 40 magazine. Available now at WB40.com. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to quality podcasts. We're also now available on YouTube. We chat with really interesting women about their hard-won wisdom, but it really helps us if you can subscribe, like, and share the podcast. Thanks so much for your support. Bye for now.